Okay, we'll start. I think we're just going to go back to the Talmud that we've been studying before. We actually left at a story, in the middle of the story. And this is going to lead us into the topic of the next several months, which will be employee relationships, but employer, employee. But we're not there yet. We have to get through these stories. So go to 148. This is Baba Metzia, 86a. And we're in the middle of the story about Rabbi Bar Nachmani, who becomes a fugitive from the non-Jewish authorities. And the story starts where the claim is that he was a victim of shmada, which in the Talmud usually means anti-Jewish oppression. But it's a little more complicated than that, because he then it says what he did, he or at least what he was charged with was encouraging people not to pay their taxes, kind of teaching people not to pay their taxes, a lot of people. So the government is after him for that. I mean, from our eyes, it doesn't sound like anti-Semitic oppression necessarily, as if he's actually guilty of a serious crime. But I mean, in those days, the imperial power was almost always the enemy, and you did whatever you could to outsmart them. And if you could get away with not paying taxes, you didn't pay taxes. And also, I mean, for the imperial enemy, the Jews, the conquered peoples were also enemies. So there was always this real strong tension in empires between the conqueror and the conquered. Anyway, it's a really interesting story. A lot of different issues come up in the story, and about guilt and punishment and contrition and levels of guilt. Yeah.
So taxes in those days, were they like to ensure that you wouldn't be attacked? What was the rationale for taxes? The conqueror took his share, or how was it?
Well, I mean, I think it wasn't so different than today. It was to pay for things like roads and bridges and things like that too. But it was also, it was also to give, kind of paying tribute to the emperor. Yeah, so some of that too. This apparently was, and I'm not an expert in these things, I'm just reading what the Talmud says. This apparently was a poll tax. So then a poll tax is where every citizen pays a certain amount, no matter what. And, as opposed to an income tax or real estate tax, or there's other kinds of taxes. So anyway, I'm going to skip down to verse 8. There aren't any verses in the original Talmud. That's a Steinsaltz creation. But it's helpful because, So anyway, he numbers the sentences. So verse 8, that's 4 lines from the bottom, second word. There's only 2 words in that line. So they finally, he runs away, and they tell all the cities that he ran to. This is Rabbi Bar Nachmani, he's a fugitive. B'Pumpadita Ashkeche. So he was found in Pupadinta. Remember, he started in Pupadinta, and then went on this long trail of fugitive hiding, and then he seems to hide in plain sight back to Pupadinta. Although Pupadinta is the big city, so fairly easy to hide. And so he's staying at this hotel. Ikla Bapriska to Malka. Dehahu Ushbaza de Rabba. So the guy who was after him, the government agent, finds him at this Ushbiza, which is a hotel or an inn. Now, does he just happen to find him, or does he trail him there? The word ikla means he happened to find him there, so that's interesting too. I don't know. They happen to be staying at the same place. It's hard to say. Anyhow, so now we're talking about the agent. Krivu taka kame. So they brought a tray of drinks to him, to the agent. Next page, 149. Ve'ashku tray kase. And they put two glasses on the tray. Vedayu lataka mikame. And then they take away the tray. And presumably he drinks, so he drinks from both. Rabbi right now is not involved in it. This is the owners of it, although the owners are complicit. The owners are hiding Rabbi. It's a Jewish inn, and they're hiding him. So they bring, and clearly they recognize it's a government agent. And there seems to be some funny business here, and they give him 2 trays of a drink. So there's a sense that they're poisoning him. So they want to interfere with him, maybe even get rid of him. We'll keep reading. They take away the tray. Hadar partufe lachure. And something strange happens to his face. The face goes backwards. That's an idiomatic expression, which means that something happens to his face. It doesn't mean that he dies, but something weird is going on, and it's the drink itself. So they're drugging him or they're poisoning him. It's hard to say. Amrule. Now they say, of him. Mayna vedle. What will we do? So, okay, they've kind of paralyzed him. I mean, they've got this drink that they've given him, and it just paralyzes him. And they say, Mayna vedle. What should we do with him? Gavra demakahu. I mean, this is a royal agent, so it's not like we can just kill him. If we kill him, the government will come after us, and we'll be in terrible trouble. Ve'ashkiyu chad kasa. Oh, so they said to Rava. Rava says back to them, give him another tray, give him another drink, and then take away the tray. Somehow taking away the tray, it's not just the drink itself that somehow seems to be like an incantation of sorts that puts him into this state. But Rava says, so give him this other drink, and then take it away, and he'll be cured. So Rava has the antidote to whatever poison they gave him, and tells them how to do it. Okay, so they do it. So they do exactly what Rava says, and the agent is cured. Amar. So now he says it. Now he's talking. The agent's talking to all of them. Meda yadane de gavra de kabaina hachahu. So I know that the gavra, the guy I'm looking for, is here. Rava's not in the room, but the agent is telling the owners of the, and these are the owners are Rava's allies. But he tells them, I know that he's here. He hasn't seen him yet, but I know that he's here. So even if they kill me, if they threaten to kill me, I will not tell. I won't reveal his whereabouts. So somehow he's become converted. It doesn't really say how. All that's happened to him up to now is that he was poisoned, and then there was an antidote, and he's cured. So it doesn't really say how suddenly he became an ally of the Jews. But he assures the Jews, even if they threaten to kill me, they can kill me, and I will not reveal his location. You don't have to worry about that. However, if they torture me, migalena, I can tell you I will report him. So I will be able to stand up to threats of death, but I will not be able to withstand torture. Okay, so he's just being honest with them. What is he trying to say by that? He's just being honest.
Yeah, probably so.
Or you should kill me. It's that they're in a very difficult situation here because he's saying under torture I will reveal where he is. He's just warning them. Maybe he's saying get him out of there. I don't know. But the atyu lekame. So they bring him now to Rabbah because they figure this is too much for us. Remember, Rabbah's a rabbi. He's a great rabbi. They figure you figure it out. Because we know he's going to withstand a threat of death, but he won't withstand torture, so we don't know what to do with him. So they bring him to Rava. idrona utarke lebava anpe. So they bring him to a room, and they lock the door. They lock the gate. So he's in a room now, alone with Rabbah, and the gate's locked. What is Rabbah going to do? He prays. Be'ai rachame. That means that he asked for mercy. That's literally what it means. I don't know if Steinsaltz translates it that way. Steinsaltz might just translate it as he prays, because it's kind of an idiomatic expression. But ba'ai rachme, ba'a means request, rachame means rachami, mercy. So he requests for mercy, which means the same thing as prayer, but it's a request for mercy. But here's what happens. Prakashita, the wall falls in. The wall collapses, meaning that it kills the guy.
Right.
Now, is Rabbah therefore guilty of murder? I'm not answering the question. It's you have to answer it. Is Rabbah guilty of murder because he prayed for the guy to die, or he prayed? I don't know. Prayed to heaven. Maybe he just prayed to heaven. God, what do I do? Or get me out of this, or help me. And that's how God responds. God responds by collapsing the wall right by the agent, the government agent, and the government agent dies. So anyway, that's what happens. Anyhow, Rabbah does the logical thing. Arak ve'azel la'agma. He gets out of there. He gets up and he flees back to where he had originally fled, to Agma. Agma is the name of a town. Probably a town by a body of water, because the word Agam means pond. But the name of the town becomes the body of water. So he goes to Agma. Have yativ agirda dedikule bekagaris. So he goes to the small town in Agma, and what does he do? He's a rabbi, so he sits under a palm tree, and he studies Torah. He studies Torah. What else is a rabbi going to do? I want to point out something interesting in the word, which is also an idiomatic expression for study Torah, gares. There was a time when I had to look up words in the Talmud because they didn't have the English right next to it, and so you'd come into that word, and these words aren't necessarily so easy to translate. But there's great dictionaries, by the way. Now nobody has to use these dictionaries anymore. But like there's this Jastra dictionary, and it'll take you through. Scholars still use it. It will take you through the origins of the word. Gares means mumbling, kind of mumbling, meditating. So you understand here how davening is not just, reading the words of the prayer, right? You're mumbling and you come into a meditative trance. But there's something similar that goes on with study. He's not praying here. He's studying. Gares meaning that he's studying and he's getting himself into a mood. And it's a very important word because it shows that the study of Torah is a spiritual technique and not just some kind of intellectual exercise where you try to figure out the answer, but it's a spiritual technique where you have a transformation of consciousness. So that's what it says. And that becomes important in the rest of the story. Okay? But he's studying. V'kami palge b'metifta derakia. The story, which has been very strange up to now, warps into real bizarre territory right now. So now it turns out there is a disagreement on a Talmud passage, Torah passage, in metifta derakia. The metifta is the yeshiva of the rakia of heaven. Right, so we study here. We're studying here. We've got a class here. They study in heaven too, but in heaven they're arguing about a particular law, a particular passage. At the same time that Rabbi is studying on his own, and there's a connection now between Rabbi down on earth. By the way, Rabbi who's just killed somebody. Well, his actions has led to somebody to die, so he's just killed somebody. And now he's studying, and now there's a channel that's opened up between Rabbah and heaven. Okay? Now I'll tell you what the Talmud tells you what they're disagreeing about in heaven. Im baheret kodemet l'se'ar lavan tameh. So the difficulty is this. You have a little spot on your flesh. They're evidently studying the laws of leprosy. And the spot on the flesh comes before the skin turns white. When the skin starts to turn white, please don't ask questions of a medical nature right now because I will not be able to answer them. And also because it will be too much of a distraction. But they're arguing about if the spot comes before the skin turns white. Some people say it's pure. Tameh means pure. Therefore, it's not leprosy. It's just a spot. Don't worry about it. But turn the page 150. Or, tameh means impure. Yeah, tameh means impure. So I mean, that's why I'm not keeping track of the argument. But if there's a spot before the skin turns white, it's impure. The other people say, im se'ar lavan kodem. But if the skin turns white first, before the spot, tahor. At that point, it's pure. Okay? And then, now, that's an argument in the Beit Midrash up above in heaven. And who participates in that Beit Midrash? I don't know. Dead people that are, rabbis that were alive and now are dead. Right. But it tells us one participant for sure is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God. God is there at the table studying with them, and he has an opinion like everybody else.
Very
Safek. Now there's another issue. What if it's a safek? So safek means if it's in doubt, you don't know, right? You don't know whether it's not always easy to tell. Well, that looks a little white to me, not so sure. That's a spot in the skin, I'm not so sure. So if it's safek, and they're arguing about the safek, what if you don't really know if the skin's white? What if you don't know if there's a spot there? Hakadosh Baruch Hu Omer Tahor. God says, in the event where you're in doubt, God rules. God makes a halachic ruling. What's of course one of the amazing things about this is one would think if God is making a ruling, if God gives an opinion, that would be it. Like we would all close our books and go home. Okay, this is, God is making the ruling here.
You don't have a higher authority.
Yeah, I know. So God says tahor. God says in that case the person is pure, doesn't have leprosy. However, people disagree. Kulu matifta. In fact, everybody else disagrees. They're all disagreeing with God. Kulu matifta derakia. Everybody in class that day, everybody in the Beit Midrash of heaven, amre tameh. They all say impure. So now there's a disagreement between God and the rest of the Beit Midrash. What do? We have to make a ruling. I mean, some disagreements you leave it as is. This, however, has practical implications. Apparently, in those days it did. It doesn't matter. They think it does. So what do? Well, there's an obvious thing. The amre, my nochach. So they're asking each other, who's going to judge? Actually, the my nochach means who's around, who's here. So who's here that can decide, because we've got a 50-50 split. We've got God on one side, and we've got everybody else on the Beit Midrash. It's really astonishing, too, because you think, well, okay, God gets to decide these things.
You think his decision would be final, right?
Yeah, right. Now, God does get some weight. God gives more, because normally it would be a majority.
Right.
and the majority is saying one thing. But if it's God versus the majority, what they're saying is God is 50% and the rest of the people are 50%. So you've got to split, and you need someone to decide.
Right.
So who's going to decide? And they're saying, Nochach Rabbi Bar Nachmani. So Rabbi Bar Nachmani is around. I mean, they're saying there's this channel now. Now, he's not here. He's not in heaven. That's the problem. The problem is he's not in heaven. He's on earth. But he could decide. Demar Rabbi Bar Nachmani, because Rabbi Bar Nachmani has said, we have this in a different place in the Talmud, Ani Yachid B'Negaim. I am the only authority. Yachid means the one. I am the one I'm the go-to guy when it comes to deciding issues of Negaim, which are leprosy, basically leprosy, spots on the skin, wounds on the skin. And happens Ani Yachid B'Ohalot. And I also am the expert on the laws of tents. The laws of tents are dead bodies in tents, and who gets impure, who gets pure. So I know about these things. It's not just that I know about these things. I know better than anybody. He said that before. So the rabbis up above, or whoever's participating in the Metifta above, the yeshiva above, they're saying he's the guy that can decide, because he knows better than us, and he knows better than God. There's nobody that knows this material better than he does. The problem is, he's alive. That's right. That's the problem. He's not dead. So he can't participate. So how do you solve that problem? He's got to die. Yeah. Right? He's got to die. Yeah, he's got to die. Now go back to the earlier part of the story. Yeah. I mean, I'm not making this connection necessarily. I'm suggesting there could be a connection. What did he just do? He just killed somebody. Right. What's the punishment for killing somebody? Yes. And now, but the thing is, did he really kill him? Yeah. Because he prayed and then he died. So and also, I mean, is it murder if you kill somebody who's going to turn you into the authorities, who are then going to kill you? Right. Yeah. Especially if it's an unjust authority. Although, was it really unjust? Because, as we said before, it seems like he was actually guilty. So a lot of ambiguity in this story. And we're ending up, well, I don't want to give it away, but we'll finish in a second.
He didn't pray for killing the person. He just prayed for a solution.
Doesn't say what he prayed for. We don't have the text of the prayer. Maybe. I mean, this is really, there's a lot of interesting things here. What's going on in prayer? Right. What's going on subconsciously in prayer? What's going on consciously in prayer? You know, what are you bringing to prayer that maybe you're not even aware of? So it's just as, get me out of this, but maybe deep down he's saying, gosh, wouldn't it be great if this guy would be dead? That would solve everything. And then he's dead. And then he goes off and he's praying by himself in this meditative state. And suddenly, is this a coincidence? A channel opens up to heaven. And suddenly, the solution to the problem up in heaven is that this guy has to die. Now, but it's a very nice kind of needing to die. You have to die because we need you in heaven. That's about as gentle a way as getting somebody to heaven as possible. Still, he's dying. Good news and bad news, right? Good news is you've been selected to solve a problem in heaven. The bad news, the only way we can get you there is for you to die. Yeah.
This is an aside. This is an aside. That there's a condition called vitiligo, which is exactly what they're describing. There's patches of non-pigmentation in the skin and in the hair.
Yeah.
This is totally benign.
Yeah.
And the Egyptians 3,000 years ago had devised a treatment. That's how important this was.
Yeah.
People were shunned when they had.
They were shunned, right? Yeah.
And so they devised a treatment for this. They used the sun.
Yeah.
So that's 3,000 years ago. This was an issue.
Yeah, it's interesting. I also think it's interesting. There's something that's interesting in the story. We're not even done yet, but one thing is that God's opinion is to be lenient. Right. If you're in doubt, just don't worry about it. And everybody else wants to be machmir strict about it. Yeah. Okay, let's finish the story. All right. Shidaru shlicha batre. So they send a hitman. Somebody said a hitman, right? But they've got the best hitman of all time. Whose job is it to go and get people whose time is up? Yeah, they go get the angel. So the angel of death comes. There's no better hitman than the angel of death. So God sends the angel of death, but he's not quite good enough. He's not quite good. Lo have matze malach hamavet lemikravle. But the angel of death wasn't able to approach him to end his life. Why? Midalo have kapasik pume megirse. because because his mouth never stopped in that garas, that meditation of studying. So we have this a few times in the Talmud, is the one way you can outwit the angel of death is if you're studying Torah. If you're in the middle of studying Torah, then the angel of death has no hold over you. So you can't die. And there's at least one other story where David is aware of that. So David keeps studying, King David keeps studying all the time. But now you have it another time with Rabbi, now we don't know if Rabbi is even aware that the angel of death is after him. But we know that he can't stop studying. He's not stopping to study. Now, I'm also, feeling that one of the reasons why this is a very radical thing to do, keep your mouth moving with study all the time, that maybe there's some guilt here. Why does he go off and sit under a palm tree and get himself into this meditative state? He clearly feels guilty about what happened to the soldier who was after him. Whether he feels it was his fault or not, he feels some guilt. That's why I said the story in some ways is about guilt, even if he's not 100% responsible. And he wants to kind of come to terms with this guilt, and one of the ways you do that is by thinking hard and studying about it. But in the meantime, the angel of death can't get to him. Okay, next page.
Because he's filibustering.
His filibustering, yeah. 151. But the angel of death, always wins in the end. You can't keep that up. Adahachi. So at the time, Nishav Zika. And by the way, this is what happens in the David story also. A wind blows. So the angel of death makes a wind blow. Because what do? You distract somebody. So he's just got to stop for an instant. If he stops for an instant, he could get in there. Okay. Adahachi Nishav Zika. Wind comes. Zika's a wind. Ve'avesh bene kane. And it makes a noise in the trees. So what does Rabbi think? Savar gunda de parasehu. So he thinks a soldier's coming after him. He hears the wind. It's just the wind, but he hears a sound, and he thinks a soldier's coming after him. So he says to himself, now here, maybe we have some idea that the angel of death is coming, and he's aware of it. And he says, Tenach nafshe, dahu gavra, it'd be better that I die now, v'lo yimaser bidei de malchuta, and I not die by the government. I not be turned over to the government. Okay. And that's it. So he stops his mouth from studying, and he dies. So he dies, and that's how he dies. That, by the way, is the end of his story because he's dead. So presumably at this point, he goes up to heaven.
Now he can solve the problem.
And he solves the problem. So now what we have now, which we'll get to, we've got some time. There's an epilogue, but we're done with the original story. So I'm going to stop here and see if there's any comments about the story. It's a very interesting. He prays. The guy dies. He's guilty. He's not guilty. Heaven decides to kill him. Is the killing a punishment or is it a reward? Right? Because being taken up and given that great honor of solving a problem between God and everybody else, God and the other students of the Beit Midrash, what is going on here? You can help me out with this story. We'll take 2 minutes. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say this is the appropriate time to say when Nadine Steinfels was in San Diego, he said, heaven and hell is the same place. What you do up there is study Torah with God. So those who study Torah on earth, for them it's heaven. Those who never bother to study Torah, when they get there, it's hell.
Yeah. I think that's pretty true. If you're just thrown into it, yeah. Well, obviously, then for Rabbi it would be heaven. Yeah. Because that's what could be greater. Yeah.
My thought is about the Torah as a law also, because you can see the relationship between the sages that are already gone, God, and the sages that are alive, and there is some sort of hierarchy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thought.
Yeah.
And it's a lot about, it starts with the issue with tax, and it's
Yeah.
with government
Yeah.
law, and then it goes to medical issues.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Yeah. There's no question there where they're arguing about law.
Yeah.
And they're trying to, because what they want is a ruling that can resolve the issue for them. So they're going back and forth and back and forth. What we don't have is what's called the shakla v'tarya, which is the arguments. We don't hear the arguments. We just hear that they're at an impasse about what to decide. And they figure Rabbi Bar Nachmani is the guy who can decide. He actually says that himself. That boast, when he makes that boast, the boast is from a different context. They're quoting him earlier. But to show us, the reader, that this is the guy that knows everything about it. And yeah.
So I wanted to say that they're both right in a heavenly argument, because I think the reason they said it was tameh is they wanted to put a fence around it, the hole, which is consistent with the rest of Talmud. So they can agree it's tahor, but just to make sure they don't make a mistake, they didn't call it tameh.
Oh, okay, yeah. But you can go overboard in building fences too.
That's right.
Yeah, because even God at that point says it's enough fences, right? Yeah.
Do we know what?
This, by the way, I just want to say one thing. As far as I know, and I don't know, my knowledge on this isn't exhaustive. I can't remember another place in the Talmud where God is a participant in a halachic argument. There's times a bat kol comes in and just says, shut up already and follow Hillel. It's not really the same thing, because at that point, it's not like God is a participant in it. Here they're saying God is a participant sitting at the table, arguing back and forth. Sorry, Paul.
How do we know what his decision was when he reached heaven?
Oh, we do. Yeah, we do. I'm sorry. Yeah, we I don't know if we'll get to it today, but that's part of the epilogue. Yeah.
It sets an interesting dimension to the whole concept of chok, because when we read things in the Torah that we don't have answers for, we say it's a chok, and when Eliyahu HaNavi comes, he will give us the solution. Okay.
Yeah.
So here it says that the continuation of those discussions later on to essentially give you the answers to chukim is going to be done by a similar group.
Right. A more a group that's got kind of a transcendent knowledge.
That's it.
Something beyond what human beings are right. Yeah. So and so the idea, of course, is that these problems are not insolvable.
No.
They're just insolvable by human brains in our current consciousness. But one can imagine a different consciousness where you can solve these problems. So I'm sorry, I actually should have gone on one because it does say in the beginning of the epilogue, Ki hava nicha nafshe, when he died, Amar tahor tahor. So as he was dying, he said twice, pure. So he actually makes the ruling at the moment that his soul leaves him. That's what nach nafshe, when his soul leaves him. At that moment, he makes the ruling, and the ruling is smart guy. He decides to side with God. Although I'm figuring he sides with God on the merits of the argument, and this is something that you see occasionally in the Talmud where a person dies and his last word is tahor, meaning pure. So it's not just an halachic argument here. It's a comment by the editors of the Talmud on Rabbi as a person in general, because we've been thinking, you and I have been thinking, is this guy guilty of murder?
Right.
And is he a guilty person? And the Talmud wants us to know that as he died, the last word to come from his lips were tahor, meaning pure or innocent. Right. So I think that the judgment of the Talmud is that this is an innocent guy.
That's right.
But I'm actually not convinced. I'm not. I mean, I think the story's ambiguous enough that that might be the judgment of the editor. I'm not so sure that's our judgment. First of all, it's Rabbi himself that says it. So maybe he's justified himself. And the fact that he even has to say it, and we're weighing back and forth, shows that there's some question about it. All right, we'll continue next time. Actually, remember the next week, we're canceling class for the trivial reason of Yom Kippur. It's Yom Kippur, but we'll pick up in.
But we have a class tomorrow.
Yeah, we have a class
breaking new
tomorrow.
ground.
Yeah, I want to talk about the 3 days and 7 days, and